So, what if the UAP disclosure we've all been waiting for is actually a trap? It's a pretty wild question, right? But it's right at the heart of this document from Dr. Stephen Greer. The whole idea is that while we're all focused on winning the battle for disclosure, we might be about to lose a much, much bigger war for the truth. This document really forces you to stop and think about a pretty chilling possibility. What if the big reveal of UAPs is being carefully managed to push a hidden agenda? One that could be incredibly dangerous. It suggests the story we're all about to be told isn't just missing a few details. It's a deliberate, calculated deception. To really get what the author is saying, you have to see the two different conflicts he's laying out. So the battle, that's the one we all know, right? The big push for governments to just come out and admit that UAPs are real. But the war, the real war, is all about the narrative. It's about who gets to decide what this whole thing means, and more importantly, stopping that story from being twisted into some terrifying tale of an alien threat. Okay, so here's how we're going to walk through this argument. We'll start with this idea of the battle versus the war. Then we'll dive into this false threat narrative, who's allegedly spreading it, the historical warnings the document points to, and finally, the counterplan it proposes. So the entire argument here really hinges on one big idea, that some kind of UAP disclosure isn't a question of if anymore, but when. But, and this is a huge but, it warns that this victory could be a total Trojan horse, hiding a much greater danger inside the story that's being cooked up for all of us. And this brings us to a really crucial point about how power works. The source basically argues that political leaders are, for the most part, slaves to public opinion. So what does that mean? It means if you can convince the public that there's a threat from outer space, the actual truth doesn't even matter anymore. Policy, funding, military action, all of it will be driven by that fear. So winning the PR war? Yeah, that's everything. And that leads us straight to the core problem the document identifies. The ultimate danger isn't that the secrecy continues. No, it's that disclosure itself will be a deliberate psychological warfare campaign designed from the ground up to look like a terrifying alien invasion. So, who's supposedly pulling the strings behind the curtain? Well, the document points a finger at a very specific culprit, something it calls a transnational criminal organization, or TNCO for short. It paints this picture of a powerful, corrupt group that's been working in the shadows for decades, all to make sure this exact outcome happens. And the motive? Well, what's the end game? According to the source, it's a deception with a lot of layers. By making UAPs look like an existential threat, this group could spark global panic. And in that chaos, they could not only hide their own advanced human tech by calling them alien events, but ultimately ride that wave of fear to consolidate totalitarian global power. And it says this has been their goal for over 70 years. But a plan this huge needs messengers, right? So if there really is a disinformation campaign, how is it actually being spread? The document claims it's being done through very specific, very visible people who have been given these huge platforms to shape how we all think about this. The source uses a term straight out of a spy movie, non-official covers, or NOCs. It alleges that these people are basically operatives for this TNCO, and they've been given an all-access pass to mainstream media and major podcasts to carefully plant and grow this alien threat idea in our minds. And get this, the document makes this incredibly concrete. It's not just talking in hypotheticals. It includes this redacted list of people who it says suck up all the oxygen in the room on the UFO subject. I mean, the accusation is stunningly direct that these specific individuals are corrupt operatives working for this criminal organization. The allegations laid out here are extremely serious. We're talking way beyond just spreading some bad info. The source accuses these people of defrauding the U.S. government, of making false felony claims to completely derail federal investigations, and even of being involved in criminal financial schemes. Now, to back up claims this extraordinary, the document argues that this isn't some new tactic. Nope. Instead, it points to a historical pattern, a playbook, really, where fear was allegedly weaponized to manipulate the public and justify some pretty drastic political moves. The timeline laid out here is pretty stark. It claims the Gulf of Tonkin incident was exaggerated to ramp up the Vietnam War. It alleges 9/11 was allowed to happen to get public support for wars in the Middle East. It even frames the COVID-19 pandemic as a beta test for controlling the entire global population through fear and emergency powers. According to this document, these weren't just random events, they were practice runs. And the final performance, it warns, will be a false UAP disclosure using this exact same playbook. Okay, so in the face of such a dire warning, what's the solution? Is there a way out? Well, the document doesn't just outline a problem, it actually presents a very specific, actionable strategy to counter this alleged criminal operation before it's too late. And the logic behind the whole plan is summed up perfectly by this direct quote from Dr. Greer. The idea is you don't have to prove this massive, overarching conspiracy in a court of law. Instead, you can take down the whole operation by going after the more conventional, provable crimes committed by its key players. So, the document lays out this clear four-step counteroffensive. Step 1, launch federal investigations into these so-called mouthpieces. Step 2, follow the money. Get forensic accountants to dig into their finances. Step 3, use the threat of prosecution to get the lower-level guys to flip and talk about the wider network. Trade up the chain. And finally, Step 4, take all that evidence to political leaders to shut down the false narrative before it can really take hold. And so we're left with this really unsettling thought. According to this document, disclosure is coming. The battle isn't about if the truth will get out anymore. It's about which version of the truth is going to win. The real question isn't just what will be told. It's what will be made to believe.